It is good to have you join me again on this episode of Service to Humanity, a program designed to bring you up to date on the activities of the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development. I am your host, Habiba Zakzak. 21st August 2021, the ministry clocked 2 years. It also marked the 2021 World Humanitarian Day on the 19th, hosting a conference with the theme Building Resilience to Climate Change through a National Humanitarian Development, Peace Nexus and Localization. Full details of the event in our program. Just as we also bring you highlights of major events in the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs in the last 1 year. Keep watching.
The Empower program is key to helping young Nigerians acquire and develop.
The federal government of Nigeria remains committed to including and protecting persons with disabilities to guarantee that no one is left behind.
I see that we are going through challenging times, and I see this woman running all about the country trying to help our people, because this lady is doing a very good job for our country.
Thank you.
Thank you for all what you have been doing for us.
In the Management Diary, Empower Batch C takes off just as the Government Enterprise and Empowerment Program JIP 2.0 is formally launched. Details coming up shortly. Don't go away.
The second phase of the Government Enterprise Empowerment Program, JIP 2.0, has been formally launched in an elaborate ceremony in Abuja on Tuesday, 24th August 2021. JIP is one of the components of the National Social Investment Programs under the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development. Permanent Secretary of the Ministry, Bashir Noura Alkali, gave the opening remarks, urging participation in the scheme by target beneficiaries.
I wish to implore all eligible Nigerians to take advantage and key into the many laudable programs available under the JIP 2.0 program. These include the famous trader money, market money, and farmer money options. This is because the newly restructured JIP 2 intends to target the underprivileged citizens and most vulnerable people in the society, with special consideration for women, youth, and farmers.
The Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Sadia Umar Farouk, called on vulnerable Nigerians to come forward and receive interest-free loans under the JIP 2.0, which has been restructured for greater efficiency.
With Mr. President's gracious approval for expansion to provide loans to an additional 1 million beneficiaries, with emphasis to targeting smallholder farmers in the year 2020-2021, the JIP has been restructured and is being flagged off today as JIP 2.0. The JIP 2.0 is structured to effectively deliver soft loans and skills to a wide range of unemployed citizens, including persons living with disabilities, marginalized women, and unemployed youth, among other vulnerable groups in our society. Other key features of the JIP 2.0 includes: 1, empowering Nigerian farmers, especially the rural farmers. 2, rapid scale-up of farmer money to agropreneurship to increase agricultural produce, food security, and job creation. Market money will specially focus on underprivileged and marginalized women in the communities. The trader money will target empowerment and uplifting underprivileged and vulnerable youth, that scavengers, market wheelbarrow boys, orphans, and youth with special needs.
In his keynote address, special guest of honor, the Vice President, Professor Yemi Oshibanjo, who was represented by the Special Advisor to the President on Political Matters, Babafemi Ojodu, commended the minister's doggedness in implementing the National Social Investment Program and ensuring that it delivers on its objective of reducing poverty.
The Government Enterprise and Empowerment Program is a baby of the presidency handed over to Madam Humanitarian to nurture And I have been asked to let you know, the Honourable Minister, that you have the full backing of their excellencies and the full confidence that you are up to the task of reaching out to the majority of the poor people in our country and alleviating their condition. For many of us who live in the cities, we may not know what impact this program is having on our people. Many are in the villages whose annual income are not up to 10,000 naira. So reaching out to them and extending a hand of fellowship is a major contribution to reducing poverty in our country.
There were goodwill messages from other key stakeholders and ministers who took turns to commend the restructuring of the JEEP program, as well as the commitment of the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs towards actualizing the vision of President Muhammadu Buhari of lifting 100 million Nigerians out of poverty.
The resident commissioner of UNHCR, our brand ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen.
That was the Permanent Secretary, Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, welcoming guests to the commencement of Empower Batch C program of the federal government. The onboarding exercise, which held in Abuja, was for the first stream of the Batch C, comprising 450,000 beneficiaries under the graduate component of the Empower and 60,000 beneficiaries under the non-graduate component of the scheme, making a total number of 510,000 beneficiaries. Speaking during the ceremony, Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, Sadiya Umar Farouk, congratulated the successful beneficiaries who made the final selection stage and charged them to make optimum use of the rare opportunity given to them. She spoke on various aspects of the selection process.
The Empower deploys an online application and selection strategy to ensure fairness, transparency, and credibility in the recruitment process. At this point, I must commend our partners who have helped us in developing this device, that is the 4-core services. The program commenced in the office of His Excellency the Vice President, as we all know, back in June 2016, when the application portal was first opened. Over 750,000 applications were received, out of which 200,000 beneficiaries were screened and selected into the Batch A program. The portal was opened again in June 2017, where over 2.5 million applications were received, from which another 300,000 volunteers were selected into the program as Batch B. A total of 500,000 unemployed youths participated in the program under the Batches A and B.
The event also saw the minister issuing engagement letters to some of the successful beneficiaries.
All right, I think that should be it.
Goodwill messages lauding the objectives of the Empower scheme were delivered by special guests and other stakeholders.
The program is Service to Humanity. August 19th every year since 2003 has been set aside to mark the World Humanitarian Day as a day to honor humanitarian aid workers. From the global theme of climate change, Nigeria marked the day with the theme Building Resilience to Climate Change through a National Humanitarian Development, Peace Nexus and Localization. During the event, the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development unveiled the National Humanitarian Peace Framework. Highlights of this, amongst other major issues discussed, will form the thrust of our next segment. Please stay tuned.
Attendance at the 2021 World Humanitarian Day underscored the importance that the Nigerian government attaches to humanitarian issues. A representative of the Vice President, several ministers of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, heads of various agencies and commissions, various development partners, and other stakeholders graced the occasion. The issue of climate change and its relationship to most disasters and humanitarian crises and its ability to worsen vulnerabilities and impacts were thoroughly explored. The Permanent Secretary, Bashir Nura Al-Kali, in his welcome address mentioned some of the crises faced in the country as a result of climate change.
Nigeria experiences protracted humanitarian crisis due to ongoing violence. This is evident in practically all parts of the country. Flash and riverine floods, as well as fire hazards, industrial accidents are also prominent. In fact, the 2020 seasonal climate and rainfall predictions presented by the hydrological and meteorological agencies show extreme ends of the spectrum for heavy rainfall and drought from around July 2020 last year. This risk analysis and profile evidently shows that the root cause and human impact of this crisis is climate change.
In his goodwill message, the UN Resident Coordinator, Mr. Edward Kalon, stated that acute humanitarian needs must be met with an intention towards sustainable development. While expressing that providing humanitarian assistance must be built around a resilient approach, he explained ways to address complex emergencies.
Addressing complex emergencies requires appropriately locally constructed and context-specific initiative to address a duality of two confrontational issues that we address with the humanitarian context. That is, one, reduce needs, risks, and vulnerabilities of the affected population, but also build resilience at individual, household, community, and institutional level.
The Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, Sadia Umar Farouk, unveiled the National Humanitarian Peace Framework, which will provide a more integrated, effective, and efficient methodology for the aid sector to support the development and peace objectives of Nigeria. She speaks further on the framework.
The strategic intent of the framework is to reduce vulnerabilities and support and promote peace and stability in Nigeria. It must be understood that vulnerability is not innate, it varies over time, meaning that it can be reduced through strategic planning and preparation, as well as through equitable policy making and investment. Thus, it is critical that vulnerable populations be regularly engaged and that they inform all our strategic planning. This modus operandi ensures government hears and acts on the perspectives of how individuals or communities can improve their outcomes in the event of any emergency. The National Humanitarian Development Peace Framework has been developed to counter specific risks through 7 goals, all of which contain set objectives, strategic approaches, and actions.
The Minister of State, Budget and Planning, Mr. Clem Agba, in his presentation, explained that the movement for localization framework was birthed at the World Humanitarian Summit in 2016. He reiterated that climate change has now become a national development challenge, as the overall national challenge depends to a large extent on the effective mitigation and adaptation to climate change.
Ownership of humanitarian action by national and local actors, especially the government. Local government taking the lead, supported by other local actors, is the way to a quicker, effective, result-driven, and sustainable response to humanitarian crisis. In recent times, the government has assumed the leadership of the humanitarian response in accordance with United Nations General Assembly resolutions, while the international community has been working to reinforce and fill any gaps in support of government-led efforts.
The Vice President, Professor Yemi Oshibanjo, was represented by the Minister of State Education, Chukwuemeka Nwajuba, in his keynote address, said the climate emergency has been a steady cause which has caused havoc across the world, putting a strain on the humanitarian community.
The design of the National Humanitarian Development Peace Nexus and Localization Framework is thus a timely contribution to the global fight against climate change and in line with President Muhammad Buhari's plan for tackling climate change by focusing the actions of humanitarian and developmental agencies on the vulnerable populations directly affected by these changing climates and the ensuing stability across the nation through the promotion of local action and a homegrown approach to humanitarian intervention, development, disaster management, and peace building. The framework thus shows our commitment as a nation towards a sustainable future through the strengthening of local agencies, systems, and building a knowledge base from which we can operate.
While pledging commitment in tackling the problems, he encouraged all relevant stakeholders to join in the plans and tackle climate change in the country. Other stakeholders in their goodwill messages expressed their support to the federal government and the ministry in fighting humanitarian crisis.
The ECOWAS Commission will work in synergy with member states and partners to provide appropriate humanitarian assistance to the most vulnerable member states, particularly relating to issues of climate change.
The Federal Ministry of Environment is always ready to collaborate with the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, and other stakeholders in raising climate change awareness towards supporting the vulnerable communities in adapting to the threat and consequences of global changing climate.
On our part, we will continue to intensify our advocacy to all levels of government, as well as indulge in community engagement to engage women who cannot be left behind.
The event included a technical session where the various issues were further discussed.
The Empower program is key to helping young Nigerians acquire and develop.
The federal government of Nigeria remains committed to including and protecting persons with disabilities to guarantee that no one is left behind.
I see that we are going through challenging times, and I see this woman running all about the country trying to help our people, because this lady is doing a very good job for our country.
Thank you. Thank you for all what you have been doing for us.
Glad to know that you're still there. As part of our anniversary package to mark 2 years of the Humanitarian Ministry, we shall, in this last segment of the program, highlight some major milestones recorded in the last 1 year. Keep watching.
That was the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs flagging off the distribution of 20,000 cash grant to rural women in Jos, Plateau State. It was one of the many activities that characterized the second year of the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. All over the country, over 150,000 women across the 774 local governments received an unconditional cash grant of 20,000 naira to support their businesses to help them in the face of the economic hardships and impact of the COVID-19.
It is a great honor and privilege for me to welcome you to this ministerial dialogue on
Socializing the National Social Register was also a step that the ministry took in addressing the humanitarian crisis and responses by various ministries. This it did during the first ministerial dialogue on the National Social Register held in February 2021. The potentials of the register to tackle poverty issues was explained by the minister, just as stakeholders applauded the initiative. The last 1 year also saw the ministry taking a major decision to send out independent monitors to monitor the implementation of the National Social Investment Programs. Their training was flagged off on the 4th of February 2021.
I welcome you all to the flag-off event for the distribution of engagement letters.
Pursuant to the training, independent monitors from the ministry were formally engaged and given tablets to carry out their assignment. After the initial flag-off in Abuja on the 10th of June, engagement letters and distribution of laptops took place across the country.
It's a mobile and web-based application designed for monitoring a national social investment program.
A major achievement under this innovation is the deployment of a customized software made in Nigeria called the Social Investment Management Information System, which allows the ministry monitor the activities of independent monitors real-time.
The application, which we call the Social Investment Management Information System, is a mobile and web-based application designed for monitoring a national social investment program. Using this application, the ministry sees real-time report of activities of the independent monitors on the field. We can view reports submitted and see the NC performance indicators by states and detect areas of challenges. For example, under the National Homegrown School Feeding Program, we can see where feeding has taken place and where there's no feeding happening.
The flag-off of registration of the Batch C and Power beneficiaries on the 11th of March 2021 was a major milestone in the record of the ministry. This is especially so because of the digitization of the registration through the National Social Investment Management System launched to make the registration of beneficiaries seamless and without bias.
Congratulating 1,500 graduates.
Meanwhile, the ministry also successfully carried out the training of the N Creative beneficiaries in the Northern Zone, equipping 1,500 young Nigerians with the skills to succeed in the creative industry. They graduated 15th March 2021.
Inaugurate this team.
On the Homegrown School Feeding Program, the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs inaugurated a multi-sectoral committee with members from 10 ministries, tasked with the responsibility to look at every aspect of the feeding program and ensure that it runs seamlessly, achieving the objectives of its design and intent. Along this line, the ministry also embarked on an enumeration of the homegrown school feeding program as well as the scaling up of the program. At the Federal Capital Territory, the minister flagged off the distribution of utensils and aprons to support the implementation of the program. This was on the 26th of May 2021. The inauguration of the Senior Citizens Center Governing Board is another major milestone recorded by the ministry in the last 1 year. The event, which took place on the 7th of June 2021, was the crystallization of the ministry's efforts in matters affecting the aged in Nigeria.
I must say that I'm very delighted to join you in celebrating.
For persons with disabilities, the ministry has not relented in its efforts to give them a sense of belonging. At the 2020 World Disability Day event, the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs formally launched a therapeutic sports club for PWDs, while also launching the Coalition of CSOs for Women and Children with Disabilities. The success stories of the ministry in the last 1 year are quite numerous. The design of various policies alongside the various agencies to tackle disasters, gender issues, humanitarian affairs, food security, etc. are just too numerous to mention. The passion of the minister is also unmistakable. Blueprint Media, in its annual awards to public officers, recognized the efforts of the minister and awarded her Public Officer of the Year in recognition of her contributions to humanitarian and emergency interventions in Nigeria, as well as her leadership ability during the year 2020. The ceremony held in June 2021.
It has been a very busy period for the ministry and quite a lot has been achieved. But coordinating Nigeria's response to the humanitarian crisis while carrying out other aspects of the ministry's mandate is a huge task, one that the ministry is taking in its stride. Here is wishing the ministry more grace and more wins. Till I come your way again, have a great week ahead and stay safe.